Wrath, pride, greed, gluttony, lust, sloth, and envy. These make up the 7 deadly sins, and although they technically aren't mentioned in the Bible, the bad things you do are generally grouped under one or more of these vices in Christianity. The 7 deadly sins are also a key part of today's review as we look at Monark, a JRPG which deals with these vices with tactical gameplay. Some of the developers are staff that had worked on the Shin Megami Tensei series, and it shows with some influences from Shin Megami Tensei F being an inspiration for the game, as well as gameplay elements from Lost Dimension, another game from developer Landcast. For transparency, a copy of the game was provided to me courtesy of the publisher NIS America, and this review will contain some visual out of context spoilers, but I will try to keep the review as spoiler free as I can. In Monarch, you play a male self-insert whom you can name attending Shin Mikado Academy. The academy is suddenly surrounded by a barrier trapping the students inside, and there's a mysterious mist going around causing the students to go mad. After completing a questionnaire to determine which of the 7 sins will make up your ego, you'll wake up in the academy and are found by, in Japanese naming conventions so last name first, Hinata Nozomi, a fellow student and the head of the student council, Hasegawa Kakeru, a school doctor, and Aikawa Chiyo, your character's little sister. You find yourself on the 2nd floor of the main building covered in mist, and as you try to escape you'll receive an unusual phone call and are attacked by enemies. When things start to look bleak, a mysterious rabbit creature named Vanitas appears and you'll form a contract with him to become the pactbearer of vanity, which, as you may have noticed, is not one of the 7 deadly sins I'd mentioned earlier. As a pactbearer, your soul manifests your image gear, your clothing and the weapon to fight back, and you're also given a fiend based on the dominant sin from the questionnaire to aid you in this initial fight. After defeating the enemies, you make it back to safety on the 1st floor to find that Nozomi is the former head of the student council, and that the main building has been taken over by Hitotsubashi Kurama, who has established himself as the head of the student council. After meeting with the school dean, Jingu Sora, you are tasked with defeating the other pactbearers and their monarchs, which represent a sin, to release the barrier surrounding the school, and as you progress, you'll meet up with allies that will help you along the way. But is this game any good? Find out in The Good. I do like the game's story. While visually Monarch tends to remind me of the Caligula games, the story, while a little slow to start with, really picks up, and the similarities with Shin Megami Tensei F really shows. Each pactbearer is hiding in a different part of the academy and has a problem which is appropriate to the sin they represent. In order to free the building, you must travel through different parts of the building to access their ideals and shatter them before facing off with them at the very end of the building. Each pactbearer has 3 ideals which is born from their wish or desire, and you'll fight against the pactbearer and their monarch when you go and shatter the 3rd ideal. I found each pactbearer's plight interesting, and it just goes to show that things aren't all good at the academy. You can also speak with the students and teachers in the academy to get a little glimpse of their personalities and to know a little bit about them, and some will have alter egos in the form of crystals around the school which will reveal even more about them, whether it's a secret or an insecurity, while increasing the stats of your party, which I thought was pretty neat. There are also notes that you can pick up which detail things around the school or provide some background around the monarchs and their pactbearers. Although the pactbearers were painfully obvious to figure out even if you haven't watched any of the trailers or videos around the game, finding out their goals and why they're doing what they're doing kept me interested in the story, and the same can be said as you get closer and learn more about your party members and why they fight. Without spoiling much, if you persevere, the game's ending was structured really well. As you progress through the story, you can unlock achievements which are tied in with the PlayStation's trophy system and Steam's achievement system, and getting those will unlock new cosmetics you can outfit your fiends with, or SP points to level up and power up your skills. You'll also be asked questions and can take personality tests to increase your affinity of the 7 deadly sins, as some gear for your fiends as well as alter egos can only be unlocked if your affinity of a certain sin is at a certain amount. So I feel that by playing through the game, it feels like the game is trying to psychoanalyze me, which really fits in with its themes, since the conversations you have with the pactbearers are all clashes of ideology, which I'm always down to hear about. The story I feel is one of the strong points of the game, and it needs to be to keep you interested. I also like the gameplay, but it acts as a double-edged sword, as I'll explain later. As you explore the mist, you'll find that the area is tied to a telephone number. Calling this number around Vanitas, as that's the only time you're able to dial out, will take you to the precipice of that sin and is required to make your life in that area easier. In this area, you're required to battle opponents and shatter a crystal. This will prevent what is called a death call from appearing in that stage that when answered will pit you against horribly powerful enemies, with your chances of winning incredibly slim. You can also dial numbers to access different battle stages, though I would advise against dialing in random numbers as you'll end up dealing with some really powerful enemies. At least keep that till closer to end game. As you explore the area, you'll also slowly gain madness, and once this counter reaches 100%, you'll go back to the infirmary. Madness can also be increased if hostile students attack you or if you get in range of their mad piercing screams. In battle, you can deploy your character alongside his buddy, the ally that you have available, and your fiends, and your goal is to normally clear out the stage of enemies. There is a number of hazards that can deal damage or inflict status effects onto whomever happens to land within their radius. The key part of battle is the Madness and Awakening counter. Your characters can perform attacks or arts which mostly require a portion of your health to use. They also have access to authorities, which are more powerful moves at the expense of causing the madness counter to rise. A character can also defer their action to give another character an extra turn at the cost of the other character's madness rising up. Keeping your madness in check is important, as once the madness counter reaches 100%, the character's stats will go up with the exception of defense, which goes down, but will enter a berserk stage and will go around attacking either friend or foe for 3 turns before their health drops to 0. This is problematic as it's game over if your main character is defeated. The Awakening counter only applies to human characters and rises whenever your character is damaged in battle or chooses Resolve as your action. When that fills, your character enters an awakened state where all stats go up and arts and authorities don't require health going down or madness going up to use, and you have access to your special attack if you've unlocked it. Your main character also has a skill where he can resonate with the units around him. This will share all skills, buffs, debuffs and status effects, and is instrumental later on in the game when a lot of enemies have more health and can hit harder. But you have to be careful as statuses affect everyone who's resonating. So if one person goes mad or has a status effect, it'll affect everyone who's linked up. While the game's music is pretty generic within the game, where it really gets good is during the battles against the pactbearers, where they are vocal tracks and really shine on their own there. Thankfully, you can listen to them through your phone, which is the game's menu, but only in the screen which displays all the songs you've unlocked thus far. This pretty much covers everything I liked about the game, so let's look at what didn't work out so well in the bad. While I liked the gameplay, it's also incredibly repetitive. As you deal with all of the pactbearers, it's always a floor with a precipice stage featuring a crystal to destroy and a floor puzzle to solve to gain access to an area where you'll receive a call to shatter an ideal. And while I appreciate the puzzles for making me think outside the box, some of them can get really obscure and have you going through student profiles, login screens, and through some obscure details of the memos you pick up in order to proceed, so I don't think that it's for everyone. It also doesn't help that to get the true ending, you're required to revisit areas multiple times, which really drags the game on, and I would have accused the game of artificial padding there. However, I'm prepared to overlook that because of how the build up to the end was structured. Another thing I wasn't too keen on is with another battle mechanic. As well as the Madness and Awakening features, your character can also enter an Enlightened state, which is when both the Madness and Awakening counters reach 100%. This is hard to pull off as you cannot gain Madness when awakened, so you have to hope that your character goes mad, doesn't kill all the enemies around them, and gets hurt while it's the enemy's turn so they can become enlightened, or you resonate in an awakened state with a character that has gone mad. The Enlightened state will boost your stats up even more, as well as give you the benefits of the Awakened state, as well as a special move which you can only use while enlightened if you've unlocked it. You are graded on your performance on each battle based on the amount of turns taken, deferrals used, times you've awakened or enlightened, with points deducted if a character falls in battle or goes mad. And some stages I found it's really hard to get that S ranking, and it's not really worth going into an enlightened state at the end. Especially the precipice stages, which expect you to somehow get all of this in one turn. Thankfully, the crystal is almost always close by, so it's easy to breeze through them if you want it over and done with quickly, and you can replay levels as well as gain access to new ones through notes if you want to get gear for your fiends to power them up, as well as SP points to power everyone's skills and level up. And that can get time consuming later on if grinding isn't your thing. Other than that, there wasn't much else I didn't like about the game, so let's wrap it up with the opinion. Monark was a game that I enjoyed, and for those who enjoy games like Shin Megami Tensei If, The Caligula Effect and Lost Dimension, they'll definitely find some joy with the game. The game story I found was good, as well as how it presented itself, and while I did like the gameplay, especially the emphasis on status buffs and debuffs which Shin Megami Tensei is well known for, it was a bit of a double-edged sword and quite repetitive with the structure of beating the pactbearers pretty much the same, though I do appreciate the puzzles being thrown in for variety. I'll give them that. The game does become a grindfest as skills require more SP to unlock and level up, but it's nothing that you can grind to mindlessly while listening to a podcast or music, and the stronger you get, the quicker and easier you can beat the level and make the most of the SP points and gear for your fiends. The game's vocal tracks are good, but are only available to listen to in boss fights or through the menu. If you're after a different type of JRPG, then it's worth picking up. It took me about 80 hours or so to get through to the end, and I had a lot of fun while doing so. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Monark Yakisoba bread out of 10. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.